DJ Middle Craig of Craig's Middle Swim here. I have the member from Chris Caffery with me today. Hey, how's it going? Would you like to introduce yourself and what position you do in the band?
Well, I'm Chris Caffery, and it is my band, so I play guitar and sing, and I have a lot of different musicians that have played with me throughout the years, but my main job is just being myself. So it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing the singing. It's something I always wanted to do when I was a kid, and through this solo band, I'm able to take on an adventure and have some fun with singing and playing guitar.
Cool. If you're okay with it, can we get you to briefly summarize how Chris Caffery all got started?
Well, I mean, I had been playing in bands my whole entire life, and in the early 2000s, one of the bands I was playing with for a lot of years had kind of stopped playing. That was my main band at the time, and that was Savatage. And I just started to write music, and I'd written a bunch of songs, and I got a record deal with a record label called Black Lotus, and from there I just decided to take on doing some solo records. And unlike most guitar players, a lot of times my records, I didn't get a singer that went with me and concentrate still on my guitar. I did a lot of music that had vocals in it, so it was fun for me to take on that role as well as the guitar playing role, and to have some fun writing lyrics and singing about different topics. And throughout the last 20 years, I had released 8 solo records, and the one that's coming out next month is my ninth one, but it's kind of a compilation of some stuff on a bunch of the records along with some new material and some unreleased material.
Who's on Chris Caffery and what instruments do they play?
Huh?
Who's on the Chris Caffery band and what instruments do they play?
Well, it all depends which record. I mean, the latest single that I have has Brian Tishy playing drums. It has Derek Sherinian was doing some keyboards. You had Sean McNabb playing bass, and for the first one of the only 2 times on my solo records, I did a duet with the singer on this song, and that was Jeff Scott Soto. Now, throughout my solo records, Brian had played on 2 of the records drums, and Sean had played on one of my singles playing bass. I had Jeff play from TSO play drums. I had the late great David Z play bass on my first 2 solo records. I had Nick Douglas from Doro play on one of my records. I had a female drummer named Yal. She just goes by Yal. I don't even know what her last name is, as I never knew it, but she played on my Pins and Needles record. I had John Macaluso play drums on my House of Insanity record. So I've worked with a lot of different musicians throughout the year. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of really good friends that are musicians, but also, a lot of people that I came in contact with on the road that were cool enough to say, "Hey, yeah, I'll play on your record."
What made you decide to do the song Pisses Me Off?
Well, it was kind of just a fun idea that I had, and I actually did it to really kind of make a friend of mine laugh at the time. I was writing a lot of songs and letting her listen to them as I was writing them, and I wrote that one, and it was kind of fun to get her reaction on that. But it was just one of these things where I have a sense of humor, and take things very tongue in cheek, and I try not to take a lot of things in life too seriously sometimes, because A, life is too short, and B, you're never going to make everybody happy. So it's like you could try to be the perfect human being, but then at that point, you're still going to find somebody that's going to want to try to judge you and have what they want to say about what you do or who you are. So I just try to have fun and be myself. And this song was one of those ones where I was just kind of having fun with some of the things at the time that, were the immediate things that were fun to write about. And of course, back then it was funny because Starbucks coffee had just reached $5 a cup, and that's when I said $5 a cup, what the fuck is up? But now it's probably like $8. So it's gotten up a lot higher.
I'll tell you this, man. Over the 11 years I've been doing internet radio, every radio station I've worked at so far, I played that song at least once on my show.
Awesome, awesome. It's a fun song.
Yeah, I agree. The next one is, who are the band's musical influences?
Well, I mean, my influences, and since I'm writing the material in this band, it's all over the map. I liked bands like Kansas and Rush, but I also like Maiden and Priest and Sabbath, and being in Savatage, I was influenced by the Lever Brothers, and being in TSO, I was influenced by Paul O'Neill. So it's like I had influences from the people that I worked with, along with the bands that I grew up listening to, different guitar players like Michael Schenker. And I had mentioned Triumph, like Rick Emmett and the guys in Judas Priest and the guys in Iron Maiden and Randy Rhoads and just all different great metal and hard rock guitar players. I mean, of course, like everybody, I was a fan of Van Halen, but I never really went into the finger tapping part of that because so many other people did. So I kind of went in the direction more of Randy Rhoads and Michael Schenker, where I just went to their approach a little bit more than the Eddie thing. Just I think to be a little bit different than what most guitar players were doing when Eddie came out.
Funny thing you mentioned, Randy Rhoads. I actually grew up in the Aussie era, and I got heavier into stuff like Deicide, Incantation, and the death metal scene for myself.
Yeah, yeah. No, he was brilliant. It would be amazing to hear what he would have been able to do if he lived even a couple of years longer.
What made you decide to come up with a title for 20 Years of the Music Man?
Well, I was trying to find a way to release the new single I recorded. I was only releasing singles for a couple of years before that, and I actually thought about possibly releasing a 20 20th year anniversary of my record I wrote about the war that was called Warped, but my label didn't really want to do a double LP. I wanted to do an LP, and they asked me, well, maybe if you had that song and some unreleased songs, we could, get a few new songs and just do a whole, a new record. And I just wasn't liking the feel of the unreleased songs with just that single. And then I started thinking about songs like Pisses Me Off and ones that I'd done where, maybe there would be some of the newer fans that had entered my life through the internet or Sabotage or TSO or whatever it is I've done over the past 20 years that, may not have really experienced those songs, that I could throw them in. And then I moved it to the idea of doing the 20 years of the Music Man because Savatage was coming back to do music, and the period of time where I recorded these songs were from 2004 to 2024. So I kind of put a stamp on that period of time in my life to use that to be the 20 years that I had written and recorded all that music.
Right on. With 20 Years of the Music Man being released on June 13th, where can the album be pre-ordered or purchased?
Huh?
I said, where with 20 Years of the Music Man being released June 13th, where can the album be pre-ordered or purchased?
There's a pre-order site that's available through Metalville Records, and I have I just sold out today of the CDs, but I have the vinyl for sale at www.chriscaffery.com. I do personally autographed ones. I should be getting more CDs in, but right now I had sold every one that I was allowed to order in advance for myself. So all my CDs had sold out in pre-sale, but I have some LPs left, and I'm going to be signing them and sending those out when I get back from Europe with Sabotage, because if I was to send them before I left, I'm getting them soon, but if I was to send them before I left, they would get to people before the release date, and I'm not allowed to have something in somebody's hands that's not out to the public yet, so I have to wait till I have to have it get into their hands after it's released, but I won't be home to mail it until the end of the month. So everybody knows that, and they're just gonna have to wait a couple weeks till I get home till they get the product in their hand.
How did Trans-Siberian Orchestra's song Night Castle come about?
That's Paul O'Neill. He wrote that was his baby. He wrote the stories, he wrote the lyrics. So he had his visions of how, the stage and the band and our production would appear. And Paul was a real big fan of history, and he loved big old stone buildings and churches and castles. And, he just really loved that representation of that image to be there for, the band. And not only did it become the name of a record, but it was the name of his management company, and he named the studio after it. So it was all Paul, and all the stories on those records and all the lyrics that we've done throughout the years, that was all Paul. That was his creation, and it's something that we were all blessed to be a part of with Paul, and we're still blessed to be a part of keeping his legacy alive by playing his music every year. It's stuff that is timeless, and thanks to the O'Neill family and the history that Paul had left the world, we're able to get that music and that show out to people every year.
My condolences to any of the members you lost from Trans-Siberian Orchestra, buddy.
Excuse me?
I said my condolences to you for any of the members you lost from Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Thank you. Yeah, because it was beyond Paul. I mean, we've had a few losses in that since the beginning, but it's such a large organization, and we're going on our 30th year next year, so we're at that point in time in my life. I've lost so many friends and family members in the last 20 years. It's pretty crazy, and you just, like I said, I guess I'm getting to that age when you get older, but some of them had passed away through accidents and some unexpectedly, and it's just life. Life always throws you curveballs, and we were blessed to have everybody that we had lost be a part of our lives when they were around, and I'm sure they're watching us keep the memories alive, and we'll all meet up with them again one day.
Who designed the art for 20 years of the Music Man?
Excuse me?
I said, who designed the album art for 20 years of the Music Man?
Well, there's a kid named Frederick Deschamps or Decamps. I don't know exactly how he pronounces his last name, and Friedrich had done a lot of graphic art for me, so I approached him with the idea of placing all the old records in that, and I told him exactly what I wanted, but he had done the record in the packaging, and some of my credits for the actual record were accidentally left off the album, so I'm in the process of doing a timeline of the last 20 years of my career, and I'm going to have all the records on there, and then a storyline, and I will end up and have all the credits for all the songs that were on this record and my records on this thing, and it's going to be a little poster that's going to be included in the records and CDs that I sell on my website.
Hope you're okay, and we're going to go back to a classic favorite of mine. What made you guys decide to do Poets and Madmen's song, which is a favorite of mine, called Der Kommissar?
Um, Again, that was Paul had the lyrics for it. Me and John had had worked on that song, and John, it was John Oliva's heavy metal music, and Paul had came up with the story for Poets and Madmen, and like I said, he's a big history buff, so that was all Paul. I mean, the idea to for that was from Paul O'Neill.
Okay, cool. Just so you know, the other favorite of mine off that album was One Child, which he had the video for.
Well, that was on Dead Winter Dead. One Child was on the Dead Winter Dead record,
Okay,
which
I,
actually is its 30th anniversary this year. So it's been 30 years since we had the One Child video. I believe was out 30 years ago this year.
wow, that is awesome, man. I love that song. I love that video. I was trying to learn how to sing like John Oliva in that song.
Yeah, it's a really cool record that, as the world still seems to never be able to figure out a way to get out of wars, Paul's message in that album of the people on both sides, really the way that story had ended up on that record is kind of how I always wish that
We got three more
life will
for
end up because I just don't really ever see a reason why, human beings need to kill other human beings, and hopefully one day we can figure out a way to stop that.
Okay, sorry about jumping in there. I thought you were done the question by accident, but we got a good answer for that one.
Okay.
My third last question in the interview is, what was it like working in Dr. Butcher?
Well, that time was a really interesting time for me and John Oliva because I stopped working with my brother and he stopped working with his brother. So we got together and we hung out and we just started writing songs. And once again, the sense of humor started to take over. We wanted to have fun and get a little bit more towards like the old school Savatage, but add a little bit more of a what at the time was the modern metal edge to it, and we were coming up with ideas that were funny and sarcastic, and
The
that
song might ring a bell. The favorite line I have in one of your songs for Dr. Butcher is, I hate, you hate, we all hate.
yeah, that was I came up with that title based on the ice cream song that you had when you were a little kid with the ice cream trucks back then. It said, "I scream, we all scream, we all I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream" was an ice cream song. So I came up with "I hate, you hate, we all hate" based on the ice cream song.
Okay, cool. Just so you know, I sprung that song on a couple of the stages I've worked at.
Awesome.
And then the second last question is, please give some guitar tips or advice for starting out guitarists.
Um, it's so much different now to learn playing guitar than it was when I was a kid because of the internet. So so many different lessons and things you can learn through the videos that are online. So, um, so many of these young players are amazing really fast now. And, I do credit a lot of that to the fact that there's so much information on the net, but I credit it to the fact that they want to learn. So just find yourself and try to invent yourself a little bit different than the people that you learn from. I mean, I know it's not always the easiest thing to say, but develop a style and develop something interesting about yourself. Try to be as good a player as you possibly can, versatile, be versatile if you're looking to play with other bands. And in that case, just prepare yourself for being able to play different styles of music. If your destiny in your head is to be yourself and not work outside of your band, like I said, try to invent a style.
We have time to think of one more question if you're cool with it.
Yeah.
What social media outlets can the band be reached on?
Which what?
Social media outlets like Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Like what outlets can your band be reached on? Social media wise.
Uh, what do
Like
I?
Instagram, Facebook, that kind
Well,
of thing.
I'm on all of well, Instagram and Facebook are the two ones that I'm mainly on. I think it shares onto X off my Instagram or Facebook. I don't really go on, or I can't take the time to check each site, so I will go on either one of them and share it. I mean, when I first went on to the European tours again with Savatage in the 90s, we had just gotten a website and the net had just started, and I had started doing internet tour diaries. Actually, I think I might have been one of the first people to ever do an internet tour diary on one of our European tours with Savatage, and I just had stayed connected with people online for years. And first it was MySpace, then it moved to Facebook, and I had my own website that had a really active um, message forum where people could interact. But once Facebook came in and people were able to sign up and really create their own pages and have their own kind of chat worlds, that my site sort of slowed down and people went into the that social media world. I really enjoy being able to communicate with the world that way and to let people hear my music, but sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming because you deal with things like fakes of yourself. There's a lot of fake Chris Cafferys that have been out there, but you also deal with fake people that try to communicate to you as somebody else. So that world is it's interesting. You have to be smart and know how to use it, but you can't. I always say to people, don't let the internet control you. You control the internet. You what you do on there, you control it. Make sure that you don't let that thing control how you live. You live how you live, and you can share it and use the internet, but never let the internet control you.
And before we get into the last question of the interview, I'd like to thank Nathan of Metalville Records for setting us up with this interview today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to do it with you.
The last question of the interview is, what new band news do you have on the Chris Caffery front? As in anything we might have missed so far in this interview?
Well, we got the record's coming out. I'm about to film a video for that song, like I said, that has me and Jeff Scott Soto singing lead vocals. So I'm really looking forward to right around the release date of the record that video is going to hit, and it's a very fun heavy metal song, and I'm excited to have that. Jeff was one of my favorite singers when I was a kid. I loved what he did with Malmsteen. I thought it was brilliant, and I was always just happy playing in Trans-Siberian Orchestra with him, but to have him, sharing vocals with me on one of my songs is a real honor to me. So I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to letting people hear me and Derek Sherinian playing together again, and Brian and Sean at the rhythm section, and just getting a hold of my first vinyl thing. I'm going to be back out on the road and back home for the rest of the summer. So I'm going to do some writing, and I don't exactly know what my plans are for the future as far as my own recording, but I'm thankful for the first 20 years. And, 20 years from now, we'll see what the next ending chapter looks like at that point.
Cool. And that leaves us with the station IDs now. And I'm going to cut the recorder after that. Talk to you for a sec before I let you go for the next interview. The first station ID is, hey, this is Chris of Chris Caffery, and you're listening to Mangled Music Radio.
So wait. Let me just make sure that I have that. So I think do, 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 do. Mangled music.
Music Radio.
Yeah. Okay, wait, let me find I just buried my thing. Okay. Hey, this is Chris Caffery from the Chris Caffery Band. It's Savatage, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and you're listening to Mangled Music Radio, so crank it up.
Thank you for that, station ID. And the next one's for my personal show, Craig's Metal Storm. You can come with whatever you want for that one, buddy.
Okay. Hey, this is Chris Caffery, and you are listening to Craig's Metal Storm, so be ready to brave the weather.
Cool. Thank you very much for the interview. Let me stop the recorder for a sec.